Hello, welcome to another episode of Data in the Hallway. My name is Ray Pei, Community Manager, coming to you from Sunnyvale, California, joined by my co-host Daniel. You're still in Europe, but you're not in your usual place in Netherlands. You're looks like you're sounds like you're traveling in Germany, but same
Yes.
time zone. So, um, really honored to have two of our colleagues as our guests. Matthew Penaroza, who's our solutions engineer, normally based in Texas, but you probably spend half of your time on the airplanes and airports. And Xin Shi, who's our product manager for our serverless offering, is back. I mean, not only back, but you're the quickest returning guest, I think. I think we recorded your episode like 3 months ago, and now that you're back, so welcome back. Yeah, so today we wanted to talk. I mean, when Shin, you were on a few months ago, we talked about because I think we just started the private beta for our new TiDB Vector Search feature, and a couple of weeks ago. Um, we opened the beta up to public. So I'm sure you'll talk to us a little bit more about that. And then also, we're going to kick off our hackathon pretty soon, our second annual TiDB Future App Hackathon. And not surprisingly, the theme is to highlight our vector search feature. So we wanted to sort of give people a quick update, and then Matthew's here to talk about some of the interesting use cases. Because I think for like a new young developers, like I mean, they love AI. I mean, they hear about it all the time. They hear about vector search. Like, what can they develop? So we want to use this episode to sort of see some ideas. So, Shin, welcome back. So, yeah, give us a quick update since we recorded our episode few months ago. Like, I assume the private beta's gone well. And then I saw you on the webinar a couple of weeks ago when we did the public. You know, we opened it up for public beta. Just tell us how things have been over the past few months.
Well, yeah, thanks, Ray. Thanks for having me. I guess I can share some of the great data we have collected since our public beta of the vector search. I guess we launched the public beta in early April, and it's been almost 3 months. And I guess 2 weeks ago, we just announced the public beta of the vector search. So during the 3 months time frame, 2 to 3 months time frame, I think the feature is really attracted a lot of the users coming to TiDB Serverless. We have 600 more participants during that stage. They build the feature together with us. They actively share the feedback to us. So I'm working with our engineering team, listening to their feedback and continuously iterate our features. So I guess it's all about like how to make the kernel more stable, how to make the performance even better for our generative AI developers, and also make the developer experience more accessible to where you are from. No matter you are a Python developer, you want to just directly consume our open API, or you are a DBA, just want to rely on the existing SQL functions, SQL interfaces, we make that happen for you. So I guess those are some of the numbers, the major areas we were working on in the past few months. And by having public beta, now the feature is available among all the public regions on AWS we are offering on TiDB Cloud. So basically, you just come into TiDB Cloud, sign up a new account, and the vector search is already a built-in feature in the TiDB Serverless cluster created for you. You can just follow the our getting started tutorial or the built-in guided wizard tutorial experience for you. You can learn how to get the embeddings and run the similarity search on top of that, and build your first hello world AI applications with TiDB Serverless.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, I mean the 600 or so like private beta users over like a few months. That's a pretty impressive number. And then yeah, I mean, obviously the big value for us is not just the quantity, but the amount of feedback that we gotten too. So that's great. And then I'll list some of the resources on the podcast description, however you're consuming this podcast. Like we have a new like a pingcap.com/AI page where you can sign up for a public beta and has all like access to resources that Xin has mentioned as well. Um, yeah, and I mentioned the hackathon. I mean, typically, I mean, we have a lot of young developers, like even students, trying to sort of experiment with like new features. Um, and one of the things I think, like a frequently asked questions that we typically get is, we have this time is going to be a 4-week hackathon period. Like they struggle with like what kind of applications or what kind of solutions they can build to experiment and try out the feature. And Matthew, I want to sort of throw this question to you. Like, I mean, you talk to many of our customers and industry players in general. Like, what are some of the like interesting use cases that you often talk about with vector search features?
Yeah. So one customer I'm working with in particular, they have a very interesting use case for vector search, and essentially they are a massive multi-billion-dollar company, and they have all internally they have a dozen different databases running a dozen different workloads. And ideally, what they're actually looking for is to consolidate those workloads and use a single database like TiDB. And with vector search, you can essentially with TiDB, TiDB is like analytics capability as well as the vector search capability. You essentially can combine all of those 12 different databases into a single unified source of truth. And that also is particularly useful if you're trying to save costs, right? Because if you're trying to save costs, you have to replicate that data 12 different times. And so that's one really interesting use case that I've seen. Other interesting use cases that I've seen are, I think when people are focusing on generative AI, they're often focusing on the front end facing things, like your ChatGPT. But what I think is actually really interesting on the generative AI fronts are the back end facing things. Things like, for example, there's a very large social media company, and they use generative AI to create recommendations for their users. So for example, they'll take all the information about you, the posts that you built in the past, your age or your et cetera, and they'll give you bespoke recommendations that are also live because they are using a vector search. And I think things like that are I think, a very, very interesting applications of this technology.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sure like in most discussions, I mean, you can't go to like any meeting until somebody brings up AI, right? So I'm sure
Right.
like many discussions with prospects or even you go to like conferences or meetups, the topic will often come up. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And another interesting thing I've heard floated is that one of these large social media companies is actually looking at creating their own content using a generative AI model. So essentially creating like AI generated like posts and things to try and keep users engaged, which, maybe that's I think it's definitely going to be an interesting application.
Right. Cool. Yeah. I mean, obviously, when our hackathon page goes live, we have a section called like, here are some, potential ideas for you, like, natural language processing, RAG, et cetera, recommendations that you talked about, Matthew. I sometimes I feel like hesitant to do that, like, because it feels like here are the boxes, like you should play inside this box. I mean, I think we mentioned on that page there, these are just suggestions and ideas. If we haven't thought of something, like, please feel free to experiment and play outside of the box. But if you don't provide any guidance, then I think a lot of newcomers may potentially struggle. But all of these ideas are very helpful. So, Matthew, thanks for bringing those examples from from your conversations with customers. So Xin, sort of going back to you, like you probably combed through like the 600 registered users during your private beta. What are some of the examples that you've seen that you thought were interesting?
Right, yeah. So one of the major goals for our private beta is to collect our customer use cases. Either they are actively developing or their company is looking forward for their future planning. I guess the majority we heard from our private beta participants, I guess most of them are building their custom GPT applications. For different types of use cases, I would say. Some of them are building for building internal-facing chatbot. For example, for their HR system, for their finance system, for their IT system. So basically, if a new employee joining a company, you can just chat with that, ChatGPT, custom ChatGPT. You got all the materials you want to be to have a successful onboarding. That is one of the major scenarios I learned from the customer. So basically, what they are doing is just to collect all the internal PDFs, documentation, slides, convert them into embedding basically the vector representation inside of the vector database, and later connect to a large language model and generate relative answers to those to their scenarios. I guess the reason they're selecting, they are considering vector search because it's their own knowledge. They will never share with others, right? You can never get those answers from the public GPT-4. So that's why they have to do that thing by themselves. So another scenario I think is super interesting. I think a lot of the companies are exploring at this moment. Also, they are building, external-facing GPTs. For example, they have the chatbot for customer support for their documentation search, right? Just to replace the existing, full text search. You can just ask natural language questions. You got whatever the answer you want. And in some of the very advanced, sophisticated kind of the case, like you can just get the plain text of the answers. Plus, you got some of the, I would say, experience to click through each of the steps, and the UI can help you navigate to make your job done in some of the chatbot experience. That's what we are seeing from our private beta users. I think all the companies are thinking about how to quickly transforming their business into more, I would say, AI assistant, AI powered kind of business. So I think building a GPT or a chatbot is I would say, the most adopted easy way for them to achieve that at this moment. But we are also seeing some, I would say, some of the traditional use cases for vector search. Vector search has been in the industry for many years. It's definitely happening before the generative AI, right? We do have users like, I would say, DBAs coming to us. They are saying, with the vector search and with your and the TiDB provided the SQL interfaces, they can also try some of the image search or other, I would say, text similarity search just inside of their SQL interfaces. They are no longer need to rely on others to make their job done. I think that part is another value we identified, from the feature we are building. I guess to conclude, I guess no matter what types of role, coming to our TiDB Serverless Vector Search, you will always find corresponding materials, the tutorials to get you started. And in terms of the scenarios, I think, ChatGPT, customer ChatGPT is some of the things you can definitely think about. We have tons of examples there. But you want to, build image search, video search, definitely, I think eventually technically, it's almost the same thing inside of the database. So feel free to explore all these types of scenarios or functionalities we are providing.
So that sounds like it's quite easy to get started with this. So people don't need like deep internal knowledge about how a GPT works before they can use this, right?
Right, correct. So one of the major work we have been doing in the past few months, and we keep doing, is to making sure we provide the best class developer experience to our end users. So we already published a list of samples or tutorial on our official documentation page. And we support SQL functions, we support REST APIs, we have integrations with our Python SDK, and some of the ecosystem. I would say the most popular AI ecosystem players. We have the official integrations and the end-to-end tutorials with them. And we more than that, I think another thing, thinking about your overall architecture of the your AI application, like Matthew just mentioned. Starting from now, you just have one database to store different types of data. For example, we built our official TiDB.ai sample application. It's a customer GPT types of application. You can it demonstrate how you can store not just the vector data, but your structured data, your conversation data, your graph data, knowledge graph into one database. TiDB also support JSON types of the data. So one database for all, that simplifies your architecture. And starting your vector search application building, you can follow our tutorial. You don't need to know about the next level, the details. We just provide the wrapper, the API, the samples for you.
And if I can just add to that, if you're trying to really quickly spin up an application, the fact that you can put everything on one database, your all of your backend information for your application, as well as your model data, like that's just it's gonna speed things up tremendously.
Yeah, no, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, especially for I mean, hackathon necessarily isn't the real world, but you have more compressed time and somewhat limited resources, right? So, I mean, you can conceivably, tie together multiple databases, but that's probably going to eat up a lot of your time and offer more headache than it's probably worth in many cases. So, I mean, Matthew, this is kind of maybe this is a weird question. Like when you talk to like customers or potential users, like it are they I mean, I think you kind of referenced this earlier too. Like, are they mostly? I don't know if there's a breakdown. Are they like mostly working on like internal, trying to address like internal use cases, or is this like more customer-facing applications where they're trying to bring in AI or vector search type of features in external cases to help customers or partners, or is it more like internal, like a knowledge management kind of thing? Like, I don't know if there's a breakdown. Like, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question.
yeah.
Oddly enough, I would say, because I think a chat agent is probably one of the most frequent uses of generative AI. But I would say that's maybe about like half of the use cases that I hear about. A lot of a lot of the things that I hear floating around are things that are on the back end. They're making decisions for applications. They're making decisions on what to show users, dynamically, that are generating content and things like that. And so I think, yeah, I think there's a large application of both, and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting, like when I mentioned the webinar that we did a couple of weeks ago that Xin was part of, we have a guest, Lori from Llama Index. Like one of the use cases they talked about was, I mean, just internal, like a knowledge database, internal knowledge base, right? Just scanning through all the PDFs and and even like Slack conversations to help speed up like finding answers for like internal employees. That was like a huge like a use case that he talked about for among their users. So yeah, I think that's something that aspect of like internal use cases is something that we don't necessarily think about a lot of times. So,
Yeah, and I think use cases like that, like being able to have a chatbot internally to search for non-public information that you couldn't get on a chat GPT, it really saves your company a lot of money, right?
right, right.
It's instead of having to message the developer who's made this feature, the developer made that feature, you turn like a like 1 week process into 30 seconds, which is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I mean, our TiDBot on our community Slack channel is always evolving, but like even our internal employees are using it, right? Like it's not just community members, external community members asking questions. We go to TiDBot and ask questions about how do I do X, and so
Yeah, I mean,
cool. Yeah,
when customers ask me questions, they're not actually asking me; they're actually asking TiDBot, and I'm just
yeah,
giving that response back to
yeah,
them.
yeah. Cool. Awesome. So, yeah, obviously, the hackathon site should go live in a few days after I post this episode. So I'll include a link there as well. Hopefully, we'll see a lot more people participate. I mean, amazingly, we had people from 87 countries participate last year, over like a close to 1,500 participants, and hopefully we'll far exceed those figures. And yeah, and I think even last year, I mean, Shin, if you remember, we already saw a lot of AI related use cases. Um, but I mean, so we just look forward to seeing a lot more interesting and innovative cases like this year. So looking forward to engaging with our community members during the hackathon. Yeah, I think those are sort of all the topics that we have. I mean, this is we sort of figured this would be a shorter episode because it's a sort of update on the vector search feature episode that Xin was part of a couple of months ago. We want to provide a quick update on where things are and plant people with ideas. So a final question, Shin, you're exempt from this because you had to go through this last time. We ask all of our guests about where they live and share a trivia that many people may not know. So Matthew, I think you're our third guest. This shows you how popular Austin is. You're our third guest from Austin, Texas. So tell us something about Austin that people may not know, and hopefully it'll be different from the previous two guests that we had. But
Okay, I
yeah.
was going to talk about the bats. Has anyone talked about the bats before?
Yes. That was
Okay,
our
all right,
yeah.
all right. So no bats then.
Yeah.
Oh wow, oh boy. Okay, on the spot. I would say one thing a lot of people don't know about Austin is if you go westward, it's the green belt, and so most people don't think of Texas like it's very green and it's like an oasis, but actually if you move west, there's like an area called Lakeway, which is just green as far as that your eyes can see. During different parts or during early parts of the summer, there's wildflower blooms everywhere, so you get all different colors of wildflowers just on the sides of the road. There's also a fantastic lake out there, which is like very popular. And so, yeah, if you go a little bit west, I think you'll see quite a bit of nature.
Wow, I didn't know that. So greenery in Austin, Texas, who would have thought? But yeah, I mean, but also I like to second your suggestion on bats. I mean, it's a pretty wild scene. Like if you haven't seen it, you need to go check it out if you're in Austin at dusk, and it's something else. But
yeah, they're very tiny too. It's
yeah,
like I think they're like the size of like the tip of your finger, and
right,
when you see them fly, it doesn't even look like a bat. It looks like almost like a little bug or
right,
something, and you don't realize
right,
they're a bat until like someone shows you a picture. It's great.
right.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I mean, Shin, Matthew, and Daniel, like, thanks for being on this episode. And I have a hunch that I'll probably have Shin and Matthew back after the hackathon. Like, we probably want to Because I mean, I'm pretty confident that we're going to see more interesting use cases that we've seen outside of the beta period that we're going through right now. And then I know, Matthew, you're working on like a blog post too, right, on vector search or content on vector search, so we can give people an update on when things are post hackathon. So you've been forewarned, I guess. We'll have you back. Cool. Well, thanks for your time, and thanks, listeners, and hope you see you when the hackathon opens up. And feel free to reach out to me on Slack or Discord, and we'll see you then.